From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be with you once again across Central Florida, where the problems we have, they're not that hard to solve. We just got to roll up our sleeves and solve them ourselves, working together, neighbor to neighbor. We can't rely on tribalism. We can't rely on groupthink and blame games. Those days are over. They're crumbling all around us as those who continue to seek power and seek solutions through violence continue to fall flat on their faces as people wake up slowly but surely to the lie that might makes right. That doesn't exist as the myth it used to in the ancient communities thousands of years ago. Prior to the arrival of what I call the personhood revolution of Jesus 2,000 years ago. In the ancient times prior to this revolution that we're in with Jesus, communities were not able to, they did not have the ability to see as well as we do the lie that it's okay to use violence to get your way. We are always trying to find excuses to use violence and coercion, but they always fail increasingly, because when Jesus said that God desires mercy, not sacrifice, and when he says, do not resist evil with violence, with coercion, that he meant that that would be a new way of getting along together. As that story of his life spread, wherever it spreads, it's going to be harder and harder for us to resist evil with coercion. And that's what we're seeing right now. The more we try to use coercion to solve problems, to initiate violence against people, to dismiss people's personhood as just expendable people that can be tossed to the wind whenever it's necessary for our power and our convenience, that lie, that's a good way to function, and continues to fall apart. And so that's what we see today in the headlines as we look at the news. More and more attempts. I was just hearing the news break prior to our show beginning, and they were talking about Ocasio-Cortez. She is outraged about what's going on with what Congressman Ted Yoho said from Florida about, allegedly, calling names and stuff like that. And he apologized, but of course, Ocasio-Cortez, being the more ruthless politician by far, the more savvy politician by far, doesn't accept the apology, but uses it as an opportunity to try to gain more power by pretending to be a helpless victim. And she is terrified at the thought that I don't know what was said, and I don't justify people being mean and so forth, but I do think it's bizarre and disturbing that someone can be so slick at pretending to be a helpless victim as they have so much power in mind and so much coercive, violent ideas, which is what Ocasio-Cortez and her friends have. They don't have anything to do with social justice. When they talk about wanting to change the environment, they can't tell you the first thing about low-temperature nuclear energy. They don't know anything about it. So how do they know how to solve pollution? They don't know anything. They're fake green energy corporatists, okay? So Ocasio-Cortez is a bully who pretends to be a victim, and that's how she gets more and more power. But eventually, the game will consume her, because if you use fake games to pretend to be a victim, to try to gaslight people into giving you more and more power, she's not looking to give us liberty. She's looking to take our liberty for corporatist friends in the name of saving the planet. So if she cared about the planet, here's the bottom line. If she cared about the planet, then she would be putting things like low-temperature nuclear energy and nuclear fusion research and those kind of things at the forefront of our priority. And she would be encouraging private sector groups to innovate, go outside the bounds of the stale orthodoxy of nuclear physics, and to find things that work. But she doesn't do that because she doesn't want to solve the problem. She wants to have the problem, the alleged problem of global catastrophic warming, as an excuse to get power for her friends so that she can embrace violent, coercive control over others. This is a classic. She's not any different. She's just really good at what she's doing here and pretending to be a victim to gain power. That's the modus operandi of our time. It's the idea that if you want to have power, you have to look like the most vulnerable. It's a weird inversion, to what Jesus used to say. When he would wash the feet of his followers, he would say, if you want to be great, you got to be able to serve those, and whoever's whoever wants to be greatest among you has to be as though you're the least among you, and whoever wants to be a leader, you have to be a servant. And so she twists that and inverts that in a kind of very effective way, because 2,000 years after Jesus was on earth, it's infected our sensibilities as such that everything that we're dealing with politically are questions that Jesus' life stirs in our hearts. The stories that have been baked into our institutions of law, our institutions of economics, our institutions of politics and culture and storytelling and poetry and sensibility and all these different little rituals and things that we do together. All those things are built in to the very fabric of how we process these stories, and they're totally infected with the stories of Jesus. So you'll see that the politicians who are most canny and sneaky are the ones who pretend to be most messianic and like a victim. And so when you think about the story of Revelation, when it talks about, behold, the slain lamb, which is the whole master symbol of history, right? The idea of a slain lamb or a scapegoat being the kind of controlling force of history. And so folks who are savvy and Machiavellian at their finest are very keen when they want political power. They want to have ultimate power over your life. They want to have glory. They want to have they want to punish those who stand in their way. They want to use your family as fodder for their ruthless win-lose benefit. Folks who have that appetite and are good at manipulating people with their emotions will win, unfortunately, the most when they imitate, in a surface level, the victim concern that Jesus' story has given us in our society. Do you see the level of political correctness that the West has? Do you see that in Indonesia? Do you see that in China? Do you see that in Japan? Do you see that in Saudi Arabia? Okay? No, that's obvious that you don't see the level of political correctness and sensitivity to the concern of folks not wanting to be seen as hurting people who are weak or prone to being exploited. And so someone like Ocasio-Cortez uses her minority identification and her gender as a kind of shield for her to then push for coercive things that will not help any minority and will not help any person for that matter. And that's the name of the game, though, is that we have to always play this identity card game where, and it's only acceptable if you're touting the victim identity agenda of corporate communism, which is corporate obscene profits for crony corporations like the ones that will make a killing off of the Green New Deal, or will make a killing off of rigging our health care even more so by monopoly government. So it's obscene corporate profits for the cronies that these politicians on the left are working for, and then communist crumbs for the rest of us. And this kind of corporate communism, they will only use skin color and ethnicity and gender as a victim shield if the person is touting the party line of corporate communism, McWokeism. If they're not, if they're Hispanic, if they're anything, woman, disabled, hurt, suffering, any kind of external identity marker which can be associated with having a lack of power in our imagination, haunted as we are by the cross, those things don't mean anything in the dogmatic, vicious, hegemonic left if the person does not bow their mind and their mouth to the authoritarian agenda of corporate communism. So it's not enough that you have those external identity markers. They, in fact, will be vicious and ruthlessly aggressive at hurting and silencing and attacking people who have external identity markers, like a disability, like being a female, or anything that we look at today, and they don't tout their rigid, bigoted party line of corporate communism. So we have to speak out against this stuff. We got to call it out for what it is. We have to understand where it comes from. And then when we have that information, we have to chart a path that is a win-win solution for everyone, regardless of where they have come from, regardless of their income. We have to stand up and provide a positive alternative to the zero-sum negative folks clouding our minds today. Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman. The one thing that we've learned from an epidemic is that if we are healthy, we are far less likely to be susceptible to grave sickness. With that stated, stem cell activation is a big part of keeping ourselves healthy. By activating your own stem cells, you'll experience energy, better sleep, reduction in pain, and a support system that supports faster healing from wounds. LifeWave X39 patches are an easy, cost-affordable way to activate stem cells. Clinical studies demonstrate that LifeWave patches reset the genes in the body to a younger, healthier state. By wearing the daily patch, your body will activate the stem cells to give you benefits of a better way of living a healthy, productive life. Go to lifewave.com/B-radio to see how you can elevate, activate, and regenerate your life with stem cell therapy. There's a special offer now with B Radio. The address again is lifewave.com/B-radio. Live healthier and wiser with the X39 LifeWave patches at lifewave.com/B-radio.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood, and the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference C4MH.com can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home. And that'll put you in a good mood too. C4MH.com's express treatment plan is convenient, affordable, and above all, safe. And with locations all up and down West Florida, there's one near you right now. Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. We're live across Tampa Bay and worldwide in Central Florida. You can call us in at 727-587-1040. I've just been explaining today how the left has so much cultural power. And by the left, we mean those who believe in the fiction that everybody can be made into, by force, a perfect egalitarian, mushy blob. Every human being can be just merged into an anonymous blob of consumerism where you can pick your identity, you can pick your gender, you can pick anything you want. You can become a puppy now. That's the whole thing, where you can become trans species. This is just a fantasy of decadence in a society that has become a very bloated empire. And it's become that way because we've abandoned the roots of what made us great in those moments that we shine so strong, which is the legacy of imitating Jesus as the standard for how we get along. If we miss that, we'll miss everything. If we continue to reject that, we will continue to fall into a spiral. So it's not a matter of it being a choice. It is a choice. I will say that. It's my program, A Neighbor's Choice, right? But it's kind of one of those choices that's a no-brainer. It's kind of one of those choices that if you keep choosing to reject the choice of peace that Jesus gives us, which is a blueprint for how our societies today can be better, that you will continue to see our society fall apart into nihilism and blame games that never end. Jamila online, a listener, says they're weaponizing ethnicity, gender, and race. That's right. Because without something that transcends aspects of our humanity, like a belief in a transcendent God, like belief in a role model which is transcendent, like Jesus, who doesn't ask us to imitate egoism because he doesn't model egoism. He doesn't ask us to imitate some kind of secret knowledge. He doesn't ask us to imitate his, long-winded speeches. He asks us to imitate his actions. And without that transcendent role model for us to be driven towards, we will devolve into fighting and weaponizing, as Jamil Online says, ethnicity, gender, race, and all kinds of other external identity markers. Because we're obsessed with being different. We're obsessed with, at the same time, rooting out what we perceive to be unjust differences. And at the same time, we want to position ourselves as the most victim sensitive. And that's where the cancel culture comes from. It's raw, egoistic power and selfishness, profiteering. But it's guised in a concern for victims. You have to understand this, folks. I'm telling you, I know it's a little bit different from what other folks in the media are telling you. I know it's different from what most folks are telling you. They don't take it down this far. I understand that. I understand this is a kind of new thing for folks to just be listening to the news cycle and to hear a guy talking about, oh, this is connected to Jesus and 2,000 years of Jesus's infection in the West. I get that it's novel, what I'm saying, if you're not, familiar with thinking of it this way. But you have to see this, because once you see it, it'll make so much more sense for why the world is the way it is, why we keep making the same mistakes, why the politically correct among us have so much power and control in the driver's seat of our conversation, and why they continue to cannibalize themselves. It's always perpetual schism in the name of victims. If the left they cannibalize themselves all the time. They're trying to cancel very far liberals who were at one point considered the far, far, far left of our culture are now considered reactionary right wing by the endless revolutionary spirit of the left. Ultimately, the left is trying to revolt against nature itself. They're trying to revolt against the idea that nature is designed by a good creator. They don't believe that there's any goodness behind the universe. And therefore, without goodness behind the universe, the only thing left to cling to is power. Power. That's the only thing left to cling to when you have given up the idea that the universe has a good creator behind it and that your life has a purpose. When you lose sight of that, then you get devolving into the constant nastiness, constantly trying to destroy people utterly for nothing, for things they say in private decades ago, or things they did, or things they dressed as Halloween, or, with Megyn Kelly or whatever. Who cares? All this stuff is all based on nihilism, trying to find meaning in a kind of superficial way. People cannot escape their hunger for religion and worship. You cannot escape it. Human beings are primarily worshipful creatures. They will be in awe of something. You show me an atheist and I'll show you a fervently religious person. I don't care who they are, and you're welcome to call in and share your thoughts. 727-587-1040. Number to call, 727-587-1040. You cannot escape human beings' need to be in awe of something. They will be in awe of something. They'll be in awe of money. They'll be in awe of power. They'll be in awe of celebrities. They'll be in awe of popularity. They'll be in awe of fitting in. But somewhere, somehow, they will worship something or someone. There will be a role model that they will be in awe of, whether they consciously are aware of it or something that drives them with its hooks firmly rooted in their subconscious. One way or another, human beings are in awe of something. One way or another, we imitate role models that transfix us by the things they do and the things they desire. And we want those things too. And it's up to us to wake up to that before things get worse. Because I believe the world as a whole is going in a better direction. I think if you look at the data, human experience is, as a whole, moving in a better direction. But it can always spiral back into the hell of what we saw in the 20th century, with totalitarian regimes killing millions of people in godless acts of hell. So we always have to be on guard for that. And we also have to be on guard in the West here, because we think we're too smart for God. We think we're too smart to imitate someone. We think we're too original to listen to the words, "Come, follow me. I will make you fishermen of men." We don't believe that that's appropriate for us. And as we do that, we go and worship the most ridiculous, tyrannical role models one could imagine, and we hang our very existence onto four-year elections. How silly could we be? Back in a moment, I'm David Gornosky. We'll be back on A Neighbor's Choice.
You know what time of year it is.
Hurricane conditions in the next 36 hours.
You know what hurricanes can do.
Devastating damage expected.
Well, we want you to know, no matter how bad things get,
Power outages. This is life-threatening.
you can stay up to date with the latest information here. Your home for news, talk, and information. And remember, we'll keep an eye on the tropics. You keep an ear on us.
Got batteries in a flashlight.
The all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Yeah, we got our radio.
A bottleneck of testing and confirmed cases now topping 4 million across the country. Deaths also surging, over 1,000 daily. California among the hardest hit state, now leading the country in cases, surpassing New York.
In the past 24 hours, 157 more people here in California died from COVID-19. That's a daily record, beating out last week's 149 deaths one day. The average is now 98 deaths every day in California. And today, 12,040 new cases are being reported, just shy of Wednesday's record number of new cases.
ABC's Alex Stone. Millions of Americans out of work, too, with another 1.4 million filing new claims just last week. Republicans and the Trump administration trying to finalize an agreement on the next relief bill, but not today. It comes as 25 million Americans are set to receive their last unemployment check at the end of this week, the CARES Act expiring at the end of July. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
David Granosky here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Our website is aneighborschoice.com. That's aneighborschoice.com. Make sure you subscribe on podcast to catch every episode we do. We have our A Neighbor's Choice radio show, which you're listening to right now. And then we have a spin-off podcast called Things Hidden that you can catch online. Just search for David Granosky Podcast, and you'll subscribe there, and you'll get all of the episodes of A Neighbor's Choice Radio, as well as our Things Hidden podcast. We give you a lot of different content on here, not just a one-note kind of program. We've got multiple programs because we have different things that we're laying out. This is an educational program where you learn, you grow, and you come away from it edified with positive, practical steps to understand the world around you and to equip you and your family with the things you need to survive and thrive. One of the things I heard someone say recently on a program was that there's a problem with having a mantra like "Don't tread on me," which was the old Gadsden flag. Remember that? Of the colonists, "Don't tread on me." And that certainly that saying has a lot of resonance in Americana, right? Don't tread on me. Don't mess with me, right? And the idea is it's rooted in a principle of non-aggression. We saw that whenever Republicans are out of power, they tend to go back to those populist liberty sentiments where they say, "Don't tread on me." Those flags come out. And then when they have power, they're like, "Hey, send us more free checks in the mail. Help our constituents. Our farmers need bailouts. Give them more money for big soy and big corn and big wheat and big sugar. I mean, we have to. I mean, how are we going to compete with China? All this stuff, right? This total excuse to tread all over everybody, right? And that's why Republicans don't have a lot of effectiveness politically or culturally, is because you don't stand on principles. So this whole principle of "don't tread on me," I heard someone say it's just not good enough. It's not strong enough. When you have an aggressive alternative, like what we see on the politically correct left, in which there's a totalitarian, ruthless, dogmatic takeover of everything. I mean, there's a headline here at Catholic News Agency.com says transgender lawsuit against Catholic hospital cites new U.S. Supreme Court precedent. A Catholic hospital in Maryland faces a lawsuit from a person who presents as a transgender man because it would not perform a hysterectomy on the person's healthy uterus. The lawsuit, whose backers have for decades opposed Catholic ethics in Catholic-run hospitals, cites a 2020 Supreme Court decision that holds employment discrimination on the basis of gender identity to be a violation of U.S. civil rights law. So this doesn't just pop up in a vacuum, okay? The idea that you can have governments force people to do things against their conscience, that doesn't pop up in a vacuum. It comes when you have decades and decades of violating the legal principles behind the saying, "Don't tread on me," right? Because ultimately what's behind the saying, "Don't tread on me," is the idea of non-aggression. Have you ever heard of the saying, the non-aggression principle? That's the basis of this saying, "Don't tread on me." It's the idea that you don't have the right to initiate force against anybody else's life, liberty, or property, and that nobody else has a right to initiate force against your life, your liberty, or your property, and the fruit that includes the fruits of your labor. And we have found excuse after excuse after excuse to chip away at that principle, and therefore we now have the lawless society that we have today. We have long ago abandoned the notion that those decisions about law should not even be in the purview of the government, much less the federal government like the Supreme Court. But because conservatives want to imitate the nihilistic, ruthless desire to worship government that's on the left, what do they get? They get the same thing. And then they lose. When you try to play an out, it's like when you're, I look at the state and I say, this is the Satan's playground. And when you try to outcompete Satan in his own game, he's going to work you every time. Even when you think you win an election every now and then, okay, you won George W. Bush. What'd you get for it? You got a bunch of liberal judges. Oh, you got Trump in. He put in 2 judges. They're not doing so good either, are they? You see, when you put your hope on power rather than you taking control of culture through your self-sacrifice, through your imitation, through your leadership in your community and your neighborhood. Then when you hand off that power, if you abrogate your responsibility to some political savior every 4 or 2 years or what have you, then you will always fail because you can't outcompete Satan at his own game. And what I mean by Satan here is the idea of government controlling every aspect. And if you think that's so hard, just think every kind of tyranny doesn't happen because it's something that those people in other countries do. It can happen in our own country. It has happened and continues to happen in our own country in various ways. But we're asleep at the wheel because we don't want to think systematically. We don't want to think, wait a second, if we like this thing, don't tread on me. Then that means something even when Republicans are in power. That means that you should stop. I see Trump, he picks all these primary endorsements of establishment Republicans that want to bail out businesses and give handouts to corporations and not deal with serious downsizing of government intervention in our lives. And that's just all you're doing is you're just trying to slow. It's like you're voting for tyranny that's going, 80 miles an hour instead of 90 miles an hour. It's just not going to work. Obviously, the conservative base doesn't have the same, cultural values on a lot of the different culture war issues as the mainstream left, but they do share and they do imitate the left's love of government as our God. That government will be the arbiter of our moral choices. That government will tell us what we can put in our body, what we can drink, what we can eat, how we can think, how we can run our business, how we can do our contracts, how we do our hiring, how we do our firing, how we do anything, how we speak, how we preach. They want to control every little aspect too. So now I'm not saying, I understand there's a lot of folks on conservative circles who are liberty loving, but you got to speak out. You can't make compromises because then one thing that's great about the left is that they stay consistent. They don't give up. They are relentless in their pursuit of their crazy ideology about trying to forcibly remake the world as a revolt against nature, as a revolt against a good creation. They want to defy and make their own castle that can make it to the heavens and become God themselves. And the right says, no, we believe in God, but we'll go ahead and imitate you and worship God, government as our God. It's not going to work. You're going to lose. You can't imitate. You have to, if you're going to, it's like business, right? If you're going to be a successful product, you got to stand out. You have to believe in something that's distinctive that people can pick up on. And when they look at this product and they're saying, hey, we stand for nihilistic government worship. You're like, okay. So what's that mean? Well, that means that we don't believe in economics. We believe in keeping you like serfs. We believe in monitoring. We believe in going to war. We believe in starving people and sanctions. We believe in aborting babies after their birth. So you're like, okay, well, you said you're nihilistic and you said you worship government power. So, okay, you're being consistent with your brand. And then you go over to Republicans and they say, well, who are you? What do you guys do? Oh, we're for family. We're for God. We believe in faith. And they're like, okay, what faith? Well, it turns out we got to give a big bailout to the big soy guys and the big wheat guys. And we got to take your money and give them to big corn. We got to take your money and give them to big bureaucracies, the Department of Education. We won't cut a single penny. We'll clean a little regulation here or there for big corporations, but we're not going to take away their corporate welfare. And you're like, well, wait a second. So I got nihilistic worship of government brand. That's the left. And then I got you guys saying, we believe in freedom, capitalism. But you're not that. You're just a cheap imitation of nihilistic worship of government brand. Why do you think they're going to keep losing? It's not hard. This is not some esoteric thing. It's called brand. It's marketing. It's business. If you want to stand out, you have to have a distinctive thing. And Trump's tried to do his little distinctive thing with nationalism, but nationalism is just not going to work. You need something bigger than just, appeals to, nationalism. What is a nation if not it has something bigger than itself? The founders said that the Constitution was designed for a moral people. How did they get their morals if the Constitution, if the people there preceded the government that they were trying to put there? Do you see what I mean? Well, if you like the Constitution, they said they created it as a system that was designed to flourish for a moral people. So how can you, if you want to believe in the Trump vision as the solution, how can you think that's the solution? Americana, nationalism. How can that be the vision that unites the country when the founders specifically said that this system was designed for a moral people? But that assumes that the moral people existed prior to the creation of the system that we have called our nation. You see, you follow? It assumes that there is something bigger than the nation that you appeal to when you want to create rule of law. It assumes that there's something bigger than just a map, lines on a map, and war stories about going to war. Courageous as war heroes can be, they're fighting for something bigger than just the fact that they're in their country. They're fighting for the values that transcend them, their families, their neighborhoods, and generations of people. And so what will those values be? You cannot escape that question. And the reason why the left is as effective as they are is because they have a very consistent application of a very specific value set. And people, even if they're a little hesitant of it, human beings are going to mimetically fall in line with that which is more confident and that which is more bold as a vision for the future. And let me ask you this: which vision of the future is more bold and more confident? A conservative movement that just reacts to whatever the left does, complains about what the left does on their media platforms, complains about their Hollywood movies and then makes sappy, boring movies that are like Lifetime movies or something, complains and whines and then goes to government when they say that government's not the answer. They say they're for a free market and then they rig that market as much as possible. If you are a person deciding which philosophy you're going to trust in terms of culture and in terms of political outcome, you know which brand is more confident in their vision for the future. And that's why the left keeps winning, because they believe in what they say. Government is their God. They don't have to say the word God because they know that's an arcane word in their mind, and they don't want to say that. But they live it. They live the lifestyle of worshiping government. You want to go to college? Government will violently redistribute everybody like an amorphous blob and give you garbage education for free. You want health care? Government will violently rig the market and the last vestiges of freedom you have with very, very greedy bureaucracies with special interests rigging those bureaucracies' decisions to give you garbage, toxic, side effect riddled, old-fashioned medicine. Do you see what I mean? They're consistent. The one thing they lie about is that their solutions will give you anything that you actually wanted with it, but they're consistent in their package. They are nihilistic. They don't believe in boundaries of desire. They don't believe in self-reliance. They don't believe in nature, that men and women are different. That is an affront to their existence. They hate that. They can't stand it. They can't stand to see that a male lion looks different from a female lion. They hate that. They can't stand it, and they're trying to remake human beings into their nihilistic mold, and the conservatives will continue to lose as long as they say, well, you know, I believed in liberty and family and God, but that's actually more interesting, and you know, we can't just sit it out. We have to go with what will win, so I'm going to endorse Mitch McConnell. Oh, okay. Yeah, keep losing then. Keep losing, and then you're not going to have anything to complain about. Meanwhile, here on A Neighbor's Choice, we're going to chart the future. Back in a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman. Hey, it's Bubba the Love Sponge. With all the coronavirus stuff going on, you've heard the CDC say wash your hands about 1 zillion times. You know, studies show that the average person touches their face 23 times an hour. Your nose, eyes, and mouth, that's called the T-zone. And the T-zone is the most important area to keep clean. And for over 12 years, there's this product called TheraWorks Protect. It's been used by millions of emergency room patients and medical clinics to support infection prevention. TheraWorks Protect is easy to use, and it's safe to apply several times a day on your hands and around your nose and eyes and mouth, better known again as the T-zone. Just apply a small amount into your hand and rub it in until it dries, and then apply another amount and rub it all over your T-zone. You know, finding hand sanitizer sometimes can be difficult, and now you can order TheraWorks Protect online. Just get it directly from them. Go to TZoneProtect.com and use the Bubba Kicker. When you use the Bubba /, you're going to get 20% off and free freight, and you're going to have it in a few days. Again, TZoneProtect.com /Bubba. Start protecting yourself and the ones that you love now.
Black Rock Grill is open again. Yep, I took the team to Black Rock for our truly special occasion on opening night. It's such a unique experience, unlike anything you've ever tasted. They serve it on that unique 755-degree hot stone. You cook it right there at the table, bathed in that amazing casino butter. Wow, every bite sizzling hot, better than the last. It's an award-winning steakhouse featuring 100% pure Angus beef, the method of cooking the hottest thing in the culinary world. You got to try it. And in these uncertain financial times, very reasonable. Steak dinner with 2 sides, just $15.99. And they've gone to great expense to make you feel safe. 30-plus sanitation stations, FDA-approved bacteria-erasing foggers, glass dividers between the booths. Nothing is left to chance. And don't forget our friends at Black Rock were there when you needed them, handing out thousands of free meals to our frontline workers and neighbors in need. An amazing commitment to the neighborhood. Black Rock Bar and Grill, 2 locations, Carrollwood and Brandon, for a truly unique dining experience. Go to blackrockrestaurants.com.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski, your host. And I asked the question on the title of this program, if you're watching online, why are Americans afraid to say what they believe? Why are they afraid to speak? Why are they afraid to think, for that matter? So much can be done if we just do those things. Think. Stop hiding. Stop being afraid to be yourself. And the paradox is, in order to find out who you are, you have to realize that so much of what you think you are is just borrowed from those around you. Ooh, that's tough. That's humbling. So much of your identity is constructed by trying to fit in. Humans are master copycats. So There's that saying, don't tread on me, which is something that has cut through Americana for a long time, but we haven't lived up to it. And so a gentleman was saying, don't tread on me, can't win against the totalitarian left. And I would say, first of all, it's not been tried. We've been going along with FDR, Wilsonian style, totalitarian, politically correct government for a long time. Goes even way back before FDR and Wilson. Look at the things that Lincoln did to destroy habeas corpus and to destroy the republic, and the lies that are based on that area of history in terms of what he was really doing in the destruction of so much lives and liberty. There's a better way to solve that problem that they were dealing with. And there was a lot of problems they were dealing with besides just what you're taught in history books about slavery. But we've been having people take shortcuts to the rule of law and the preservation of liberty and the decentralization of liberty for a long time in this country. And liberty still burns in the hearts of folks, and the forces of free markets are able to, when we have a culture that celebrates something transcendent beyond just ourself, that culture trickles into the minds and the fingertips of innovators who create amazing progress through self-sacrifice, through the ridicule. Do you know what it's like to try to be Tesla? To be laughed at? You know what it's like to be Mozart, to be Beethoven, to be great at something that is so beyond other people's ability to wrap their minds around? We need to celebrate that. Stop being so focused on fighting over, a zero-sum mentality of taking from others and putting people into groups and then being terrified about the whole nonsense that we're just walking off a cliff to because we don't have courage, we don't have guts. Brad Online says it's not just individuals. Organizations, including scientific ones, have refused to publish articles out of fear. You could put together the best researched article possible on a number of topics and have it rejected because it's too controversial. And that gets paired with incentives to publish right think. Some editorial discretion is abused along ideological lines, but more often than not, it's fear-based. Actual scientists don't believe solutions flow from ignorance, but they too get forced to go along with the true believers. And the true believers are not true believers. They don't believe in anything they're saying. They're just going along with other people who are just making stuff up. I was in those critical theory classes, and they don't know what they're doing. I mean, I was trolling half the time the professor by satirizing their own material, and they couldn't tell the difference between satire and their real beliefs. They didn't have any real beliefs. It's just an excuse to try to get power and popularity and be cool. That's it. There's nothing to it. Now, I'm going to be fair here. I know that deep down, and there's a lot of folks that, even though they're just chasing the wind and their nonsense and their egoism within the far left and wokeism and all that, that there is a kernel of truth there, that there is a real concern for hurting people. But it gets mutated into this self-righteous insanity that the moment someone who has a victim identity that they normally celebrate, the moment they don't say what they're supposed to say with their dogmatic, bigoted ideology, boom, you see the real mask come off and the monster behavior of viciousness is unleashed. But it's okay. We're going to work with people where they are. So is it true that don't tread on me is a losing proposition? Well, first of all, it's barely even taught. And it only works if you have a transcendent that is higher than humans. So don't tread on me in light of a law that's based on nothing, that's not based on morality, that's not based on something transcendent outside of humankind itself. Yes, don't tread on me is not going to get you far. But if we have people who believe in something, who realize that history is going somewhere, and realize and have the humility to admit that they have to have role models to get there, and so select the good role models to inspire them to wondrous creativity, then yes, don't tread on me is a very, very key part of our solution. because with that comes nonviolence. If there's no aggression, that also includes no vengeance, right? The rule of law should protect people from life, liberty, and property destruction. So what's the other thing missing there? If we have a transcendent, if we have something outside of humans that inspires us to do great things, to think beyond the herd, to think beyond the fear complex that we're scared of, then we have something to work with. It's not enough just to be, don't tread on me, because that is a defensive posture. You also have to provide a positive, forward-thinking vision. And that can only come in the free space of free minds and free people. That can only come without coercion. That can only come from individuals' hearts afire for something transcendent beyond just human nihilism who want to solve big things. You've seen on my program that I outflank the left on everything that they want to have the moral high ground on. They said they know what's going on in Corona, and I have showed in my articles and in countless programs that things like azithromycin, which the politically correct folks don't even touch barely, has tremendous power for things like fighting cancer stem cells and fighting things like this new virus, that it has potential possible power to be a huge thing. But why doesn't the corporate communist left do it? Because there's no corporate obscene profits for their friends to make. They want patentable medicines. And azithromycin is a generic drug. And I've shown you before on my program how nuclear fusion could provide energy too cheap to meter. But none of these little clowns that tell you they know all about green energy and global warming, they won't tell you about that, will you? So I show you, and I bring the people on the program, including the doctors, the scientists, who are showing you that we can solve the problems that tyranny says they can, but they just can't. But in order for us to do that, it's two things. It's don't tread on me. That's right. And then it's let's get to work. Let's go to places we've never imagined before. Let's get things done. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.